This week on Profiles, we step into the world of award-winning director, producer, and screenwriter Paul Soriano. Find out how he harnesses the power of imagination and uses images to capture the human experience. From the inspiring coming-of-age dramas Thelma and Kid Kulafu,
Sino ang pinakamatindi kong nakalaban?
to the stunningly photographed Siargao, Paul Soriano is raising the bar for Filipino films and the art of storytelling. He's earned an impressive slew of awards and nominations locally and in the international film circuit. His most recent box office hit, First Love, is a dream come true for Paul. It took many years of hard work, patience, and unwavering determination to get it done. But he seems to be the expert in turning dreams into reality. Paul, congratulations on your most recent project, a box office hit.
Oh yeah, thank you. First Love, yes. Finally, it's for all to see. So.
Yeah, and you said that was the biggest challenge yet in your
It was the biggest
How
challenge
so?
yet. Only because, of course, we're working with two of the biggest stars of Philippine cinema history. Aga Mulak, I mean.
Matinee idol.
Exactly. I mean, from imagine how many years and how many films. I mean, he's worked with the greatest directors, the greatest actors, and then. For me to get that opportunity was a dream come true. I've been dreaming of working with, the Aga Mulak for the longest time, ever since I saw his film Hot Shots, which was actually the first film that my dad directed.
Despite knowing Aga since childhood, it was only in 2014 that Paul finally mustered the courage to approach him for a project.
I matured as a filmmaker, and as I got films under my belt, I was like, maybe I can approach Aga. I didn't want to approach him na wala akong ginawa, diba? So I had, a handful of films already, and so I said, sige, maybe not. Then of course Aga goes, sige, anong concept? No? If you have a concept, Paul, message me, let's talk.
It didn't take long for them to meet again and talk shop.
So mga 2015, he actually came here to my office. It was fairly new pa, and he came. So we talked about concepts. He just said, Paul, sige, let's work on the concepts. I didn't feel anything yet.
Yeah.
But if there's something I want to do, Paul, I want to work with you. Finally, the concept of First Love was what he wanted to do.
First Love, a story about two Filipino migrants who find themselves in the middle of a bittersweet romance, also stars Bea Alonzo.
Mga maliliit na negosyo o maliliit na kumpanya who wants to grow their businesses.
The task of directing a box office legend like Aga seemed daunting at first, but Paul's fears disappeared as soon as he got deeper into the project. How did it feel directing him? Because your father directed him for Hot Shots,
That's
and
right,
now
that's
here
right.
you are directing. What was it like working
Well,
with him?
before we got on set, we hung out a lot, right? Developing, reading the scripts, the stories. He was very, very collaborative. He would call me. We would talk for hours on the phone about certain scenes, specific things about his character. It was the kind of intensity that I liked because he only meant well for the film. He wanted the film to become better. It wasn't like a burden or it wasn't like a hassle.
Yeah.
I embraced that. So when we got on set, we were very comfortable now with each other. He made it very, very comfortable. We were almost kind of like brothers.
It helps that Paul is a hands-on filmmaker, making sure that all aspects of his films get his full, undivided attention. His films also benefit from his personal experiences. You're also a screenwriter, so I guess you change things as you go along. Do you draw a lot from your own experiences?
I'm very involved in all my films, actually all the 11 films that 1017p has produced, very hands-on when it comes to the story. And that's why I think with every film I only get better because my experience is much more. In this particular case, to tell kind of a full-on love story, because it's really my first time to dabble into that, I think it was the right time because my life is full of love. Through my wife, I was able to experience this first kind of just unconditional true love with Sevi, my son, right?
Yeah.
So, hopefully I was able to translate that into my storytelling.
Definitely, kakakilig talaga, of course, seeing the two, but also there's that depth. I mean, there's so many love stories. It really captures your heart.
Well, yeah, that's what we tried to do. I mean, working with Bea, who's equally intense, and equally experienced, and one of the best actresses of her generation. To put those two together, and then, for me to just witness their greatness at telling story and creating character was it's very humbling. But I'm really, really happy and proud of the film.
Ganoon naman talaga kapag kumatok ang universe, dapat pagbuksan mo lang.
Paul admits that First Love reflects certain aspects of his life with his wife, actress and TV host Tony Gonzaga.
I think for me, if there's really one thing that First Love parallel with my own life is that Tony and I always try to do things for the first time. We try to find new things. And we've been married for 3 years. I've known her for 10 years. So we're still trying to find those firsts to do.
Yeah, that is very romantic.
Thank you.
What was just you know, with you and Tony? So you're in the same industry on different sides of the cameras. Do you often consult each other? Do you find that you seek her advice, she seeks your advice?
That's what I guess a home does. We go home to each other. We have no choice now, right? 24/7, which is great. So we cannot see each other the whole day. It's usually at night where we kind of put everything aside and then just talk about life. And we're very honest with each other. It's very constructive in the household. She'll tell me like, it's nice, but and same thing with me. That's interesting. What about this?
Paul is so selfless as a husband. He doesn't think of himself. He always thinks about his family, me, and of course, Sevi. The greatest lesson that I've learned from Paul is that he always treats failures as a learning process. I just admire his beautiful mind and just listen to him because of his ideas, his visions in life, his dreams. It's just so inspiring to listen to him.
You took up acting classes in film school, right?
I did. My curiosity led me to, why don't I take up some acting classes? So I signed up for a year of Meisner technique, right? Which is kind of like, it's Sanford Meisner, and his philosophy is kind of just being in the moment and drawing inspiration from the now. So it's kind of also how I live my life in general. I don't like really too much on dwelling on past experiences, but more of like, who are you today and what can you do with that to bring yourself forward.
Creativity, imagination, and storytelling were pretty much part of Paul's playground, growing up on the sets of his grandfather, 50s matinee idol Nestor De Villa, as well as his father, commercial director Jeric Soriano.
I was born in Los Angeles, so I moved here when I was about 7 years old, and that's where I kind of got introduced to the world of filmmaking or show business. My lolo loved bringing me to his tapings, to his shoots, and same with my dad. After school, I would just run to his set. So I was always, I literally grew up behind the camera as well.
So you found yourself drawn to it. Did they ever encourage you to also get into it?
There was never any pressure from my lolo or my dad or anybody to get into filmmaking. I think it just kind of naturally happened. I'm really happy that when I got into the industry that I was able to kind of now make a name for myself, because my lolo and my dad, they set the bar high.
Despite being showbiz royalty, Paul had his share of detractors, particularly those who thought everything was just handed to him on a silver platter.
It was inevitable, but I think I took it as a challenge, right? Everyone kept saying when I entered, kasi anak lang ni Jeric, or lolo niya si Nestor, ang dali, di ba? So maybe I always say it got me the meeting, maybe it got me the first job, but to get the second, the third, the fourth means I had to really work hard at my craft.
Oh, yeah.
And to be here now for more than 10 years shows that, I'm doing something right. I always have this attitude of never stop learning. So I continue to absorb. That's why I like to do different things. That's why I got into producing. I got into writing because I wanted to kind of see what that experience can teach me.
Although fully immersed in the world of filmmaking at an early age, Paul had other prospects in mind even as he enrolled in a communications course at Santa Clara University in California, USA.
I wanted to be a golfer. That was kind of my broken dream. My lolo really taught me how to play golf, so I fell in love with it. I was playing golf since the age of 7. But the passion and the heart was with filmmaking, I think. I couldn't stop. I couldn't ignore the fact that I wanted to get behind the camera and tell stories. I did 3 years of college. I did the cliche kind of Hollywood movie thing. I packed my bags and I drove to Los Angeles, and for 2 years I just did a lot of PA work. I worked in Blockbuster Video, which today doesn't exist anymore.
You don't have any more video rentals.
So I did all that. I did a lot of odd jobs.
So you must have watched a lot of film.
I remember watching this Quentin Tarantino interview. He also said that I didn't go to film school, but I went to films, right? The best way to learn cinema is to watch cinema, and that's what I did. So I watched all films, from the Notting Hill rom-coms to your 2001 Space Odyssey. I try to watch everything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go in local terms, I watch Vice Ganda films, right? Then I will watch the films of Lino Brocka and Mike De Leon.
Paul's love affair with filmmaking began early in his childhood, the moment he sat inside a movie theater and witnessed Steven Spielberg's E.T. magic.
E.T. really for me is the first memory of me actually experiencing that cinematic experience for the first time. It was through E.T. And not only that, but the story just really kind of just touched me. My childhood was a little bit dramatic also. My mom was, she raised me alone, single mom, right? I only met my dad when I was 7 years old. So kind of same thing with E.T. and Elliot, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's about a broken family. E.T. For the first time taught me that there's this thing called imagination. That's the business I'm in now. I'm in the business of imagination, turning that imaginations into reality. I remember walking into a memorabilia store, I think it was in LA at the time, and then they had an E.T. poster signed by Steven Spielberg. Literally had goosebumps, because it was like probably the closest I got to Steven Spielberg was his, he signed it.
After doing odd jobs in the States, Paul eventually returned to the Philippines in 2005. He started his career directing concerts, events, corporate, and music videos. Inevitably, he ventured into directing TV commercials, just like his father, Jeric. You are a commercial director also. The first time you got into movies, why did you make that jump?
Making movies really was what I wanted to get, was what I wanted to do, right? But I had to go through advertising. It's storytelling in 30 seconds. The discipline of advertising, I think, is what I take into my films now.
In 2009, Paul released his directorial debut, A Journey Home.
Sasabi niyo lang yan, Pastor, dahil hindi niyo alam mga pinaggagawa ko sa buhay ko.
This was followed in 2011 by the critically acclaimed Thelma.
Natakbo ako na mabilis. Yung lakas ko. Sa loob naman ako kumukuha.
You wrote, produced, directed this, and it won Best Director,
That's
Best
right,
Screenplay,
Won,
Best Film.
Maha won Best Actress Award.
Do you think the awards, did it push you to want to really get into filmmaking?
I think, for me, I always say I never make films for awards, but awards kind of just gives you that affirmation. There are people out there that love your work.
Yeah.
But Thelma, for me, this is kind of like another turning point in my life, because after I made A Journey Home, I thought, a director, I made movies, people liked it, good reviews and stuff like that, and then nobody called me. Nobody was calling me. I was back to doing commercials. I mean, not that that was a bad thing, but I wanted to do movies again. So nobody was giving me another chance. No? So I said, you know what, I gotta create the opportunity. I just gotta make it happen myself, right? So I co-wrote it with Froy, my writer, and then I produced it. Very proud of Thelma. For me, it's I made this happen. It was just all me. It wasn't given to me. I had to work hard. I imagined it, and then I had to work hard.
In 2013, Paul marked another milestone in his career, producing a film of a first-time filmmaker. It was a big risk that he's glad he took.
Ang hirap sa'yo, sarili mo lang iniisip mo eh.
Transit was a life-changing moment for me. Hannah Espia,
So this director,
yeah, she was the director
director.
of Transit. I met her at a pitching forum. I felt her passion. I loved her story. It's about the OFW plight in Israel, where about the child migration, and they have to kind of hide their children. And we were in Tel Aviv for almost a month. So that experience was life-changing for me, because all the money that I saved up in advertising and just working hard for how many years, 80-90%, I just took a gamble on that film. I funded everything myself.
People said you were crazy to do that.
Yeah, but that's why I like doing these things. The more you say I'm crazy, the more I'll do it. So don't say I'm crazy.
Did you ever regret anything about it?
Looking back now, it could have gone the total opposite, right? But it succeeded. It brought me to so many countries around the world. And I got to meet some Hollywood executives because of the film.
He's a master collaborator. He allows everyone to speak their mind and to, everyone has something to bring to the table. And he knows that. He takes advantage of it. And so it becomes this team instead of just one person.
In 2016, legendary slow cinema director Lav Diaz got together with Paul to collaborate on Lav's 17-year-old script. The result? The 8-hour-long cinematic masterpiece, Hele sa Hiwagang Hapis. It was a project that completely changed the game for the young filmmaker.
Lav Diaz is a master in his own right. And what I admire the most about Lav Diaz is that he sticks to his voice and his vision no matter what. I signed on to produce that film because I just wanted to learn from him. To be honest, I didn't know what I was getting into.
Another crazy project.
Yeah, another crazy project that became an 8-hour film, right? I mean, that's really unheard of. But that was just a wonderful experience. It was a master class. He comes here to my office, drops off the hard drive, but he wanted to meet me at like 7 in the morning. I was like, okay, so interesting, right? So I was here 7 a.m. He came in here, we talked for a bit, gave me the hard drives, and he goes, Paul, 8 hours on the movie. So now I know why you wanted to meet me at 7 in the morning. When you work with studios, sometimes there's compromises, right? But with 1017p, we're director-driven. Of course, it's a collaboration, but at the end of the day, I want the director to sign off. So he wanted 8 hours. Okay, so we watched it, and it was just really an immersive experience. It's Lav Diaz at his best.
Soon after, the Berlin International Film Festival invited Paul to submit Hele for competition. And because it was 8 hours long, the organizers asked Paul to cut it down to 4 hours.
So I said, of course, I'm not going to cut it. I mean, if that's Lav's film, I emailed him about it. I said, Berlin will take us in competition, but you need to cut about 3 hours. He wrote me back a poem about how we need to, fight for our voice, stand up for what is right, and that he doesn't want to cut it. It's 8 hours.
No compromise.
No compromise.
Yeah.
So I said, I respect that. And of course, a week later, of course, everyone knows the story. They took us. Anyway, at 8 hours, they took us.
Wow. And you won the Alfred Bauer Prize.
Yeah, and we won the Alfred Bauer Prize, the Silver Bear for Lav. And that just proved to me how Lav is just a master. He just didn't compromise. And the tidbit there is we got to meet Meryl Streep, who was the jury president at the time.
She sought you out, right?
She met Lav, and then eventually I was introduced as the producer, and then she says, oh, so you're the crazy one. Yeah. So when Meryl Streep says you're crazy, it means...
That's a good thing.
Oh yeah, take that any day.
Today, Paul imparts his wisdom to the youth and aspiring filmmakers, daring them to not just dream, but to dream big. So you gave some TEDx talks, and in one of them you said that your imaginations should scare you. How do you explain that?
You don't have to pay to imagine, right? And everybody can imagine. I always say that you need to kind of exercise that right to imagine big.
Yeah.
Now the challenge is making that come true, right? So I still have big imaginations in my head now. There are bigger films I want to do. But it scares me, and I feel good about that.
What do you think it really takes to make a great film? What is it that drives you?
For me, number one, it's passion. There's going to be many steps. There's going to be many, many challenges along the line, to the point where sometimes you just want to quit and give up. But you always go back to the passion. I'm very strong on commitment, especially with the team that I work with, because it's so easy to say, yes, sige po, let's do this, let's tell this story.
Yeah.
But when you're now facing the challenges, do you still have that same attitude?
What do you think about filmmaking in the digital age where anyone can be a filmmaker? How do you keep the beauty?
Technology is great, always use it to your advantage, but I guess for me the question is everyone a storyteller? Filmmaking is like cooking, I mean, everybody could have the same ingredients, but is the final product going to taste the same? It's all in the execution. Because you can have a great story, but if you don't know how to cook it, it could taste bad, right?
That's true.
So learn the craft, learn the discipline, make sure that when you compromise, it's still for the betterment of your vision and your story.
As the local film industry continues to move forward and Filipino filmmakers find themselves in the spotlight at international festivals, Paul's sights are set on making films that are more relevant globally. Let's talk about this dream project you had. Tell me about this film that you've been wanting to make.
And I've had this story ever since I was in high school about President Quezon, saving over 1,300 Jews from the Holocaust by bringing them to the Philippines for refuge.
Amazing, not many people know that.
Exactly.
The world should know about
not many
this.
people know that. But it's a big project. I mean, it's possibly millions of dollars in budget because we're recreating, the 1940s, right? But for me, why I want to make that film? Because for me, it's the true definition of the Filipino spirit. And that's, we are always there when someone needs a helping hand.
Our dream was always Hollywood. I think it's corny, but just to break the boundaries in terms of like, oh, you're a Filipino film company. We just want to be a company that makes films. Whether we were based in the Philippines, that's awesome. But that's it, just breaking the boundary.
If you're gonna dream big.
Yes.
I mean, well, why not? It's free to dream, right? Now the challenge is making that dream come true. And most of the time, we get there, but I'm also a big believer in failure. That's how you learn.
It's not easy dealing with failure and success, but learning to manage that helps keep Paul grounded while constantly reaching for the stars. The young director, producer, screenwriter is definitely set to deliver more magnificence our way. This star keeps rising and shining brighter as he continues to imagine, learn, and evolve. Paul doesn't only bring magic to our screens by transforming his vivid ideas into film, he also transforms lives through his brilliant storytelling.